What is up, YouTube? I'm GOAT74 here, bringing you guys week 9 of the PTL. This week we are taking on Ellie, coach of the Shanghai Dragons. We are going into this game with a 6-2 record, while my opponent is going into this game with a 3-5 record. To recap what happened last week for you guys, we did lose in a very unfortunate game. It was a game we probably should have won if I played any type of better, because I played pretty mediocre in that game, and our matchup was pretty solid, but we are going to hold the L, and we are going to take those. We have fought Ellie, well, we've never fought Ellie in the past, but we have gotten a forfeit win against her in the past, but again, never actually fought her, so this is the first time we are doing it, and I'm pretty excited for it. I do want to apologize to you guys. I am in a little bit of a slump overall. As you guys saw, I'm going to spoil some matchups for you guys. Against Brett, I did choke in that game really badly. And the APM has been just kind of mediocre the whole year, my performance, as well as just the team in general. I lost the gym last week, as I just mentioned, so I do apologize, and the quality of content has gone down, meaning like my performance-wise. But hopefully we can try and pick that back up, and we're only going to look forward from here. Our matchup in this game is like 40-60, probably in her favor. It's not completely unwinnable, and I do see some ways I can win this game. It's just she's got a few things on her team that are just really scary. She's got Dracofish, and that alone is just a huge threat to my team because I do not have a water immune Mon on my team. But that is basically a rundown and the introduction of this video. We're going to head over and look at Ellie's team. Now, Ellie has on her team consists of Dracofish, Galarian Corsola, Roserade, Aromatisse, Arcanine, Hitmonchan, Piloswine, Musharna, Berserker, and Rotom Fan. Now I expect her to bring consists of Dracofish, Galarian Corsola, Roserade, Aromatisse, Arcanine, and Rotom Fan. She could bring Berserker because that thing is a little bit annoying to deal with, but otherwise these are the top 6 I see coming. Things to mention, Dracofish is very annoying for my team. As I had mentioned, this is the second week in a row Grace has a really bad matchup solely because there's a water type that just completely walls it. In this case, Dracofish. My opponent also has a Arcanine, so that's also making Cinderace a lot less useful in this game. So spoilers, it is not going to be coming. Luckily, I do have ways to kind of scout out for Dracofish. It's just Fish's Rend hits so hard. Other things I want to mention is that Berserker and Rotom Fan, her lower tiers I would say, or her like late round picks, are really hard to switch into. Rotom Fan probably a little bit more than I realized at first. I prepared a lot more for the Berserker than the Rotom Fan, openly admitting. So that thing could be a little bit more of a threat than Berserker, I think. And then finally, she's got a lot of fat stuff on her team. She got Aromatisse in right there. Arcanine's going to be bulky. Corsola, Roserade is probably going to be bulky as well. A lot of things just going to be so fat on her team, and it's just going to be really hard to try and break that stuff down. Aromatisse Wish Passing is something I also have to take note of because that thing is going to be really annoying. And that is basically the rundown of my opponent's team right there. Luckily, Rotom Wash has a pretty solid matchup overall, and usually it has a good matchup. In this matchup, I felt like it would be really nice to have an offensive Rotom, and hopefully that's going to put in the work in this game. And that is just Ellie's team. What I am bringing this week to this game is going to be the Galarian Weezing, Appleton, Silvally Steel, Golisopod, Rotom Wash, and Espeon. Okay, so moving on into the team builder. First up is Dimmadome. Weezing is holding the Black Sludge. It is a very defensive set as always. Moves being a Strange Steam, Will-O-Wisp, Toxic, and Pain Split. I feel like this was a pretty good mon to bring this week. I do have double status on here. I only have Will-O-Wisp mainly for the Piloswine and the Berserker. Otherwise, Toxic Spam is so much better against my opponent, and Pain Split is there just to have some longevity because my opponent has a tendency to have stuff that stays around for a while, like Aromatisse will stay around, Corsola is not going to die anytime soon, so having Pain Split kind of neutralizes that there. And then Strange Steam is just pretty spammable, and I felt like I didn't want Dracofish locking into Outrage, so having the Fairy type on my team would be really nice. But however, I feel like Weezing's just okay in this matchup because Weezing is really here just for the things I don't expect her to bring, like the Hitmonchan, like the Piloswine. And if they do come, they're not a problem because I have Weezing. Otherwise, Weezing's matchup is just okay in this game, and it's here just to be a nice pivot, I would say, if those mons don't come. And that is Weezing's job for the week, is just to spread status and get some chip damage. Second up is going to be Appleton. This is the third time Appleton is coming this season. This is a very defensive Appleton with leftovers. Moves being Apple Acid, Draco Meteor, Leech Seed, and Recover. I decided to drop Draco on this set this week because outside of Aromatisse, nothing really wants to take the hit too much. A lot of things can take it, but nothing really. Like Spadef Corsola can take it, Arcanine can take it, Roserade, basically anything can take it. It's just it's going to force them to recover basically, and that's a good situation for me. Outside of Rose Raid, Leech Seed is very spammable, and an Apple Acid is just a really good move because it lowers my opponent's def, making Draco even deadlier. I do have to be careful of stuff, particularly like sub Arcanine, was something I was really scared of because Appleton is my main switch into the Arcanine and the Dracovish, which is the main reason Appleton is here. And if my opponent decides to bring a sub Arcanine, then Appleton can't do too much to it, so I definitely have to watch out for that. But this is a hard switch into the Fishious Rend. It can take any hit from Dracovish except for Banded Outrage, and if it's Banded Adamant Outrage, then Weezing just comes in and revenge kills it, and it's no longer a threat. So Appleton has a lot of good use in this game overall. I just gotta be careful of stuff like the Rose Raid and the Aromatisse. Speaking of stuff to deal with that, we have Silvally Steel that is next. This thing is a fast pivot as it usually is every week, with the moves Parting Shot, Multi-Attack, Defog, and Protect. I originally had Toxic on this and Defog on Weezing, but I felt like Defog on this would be a little bit better because Rose Raid's the one that hazard stacks, and I can beat Rose Raid 1v1 in this scenario. With Multi-Attack getting buffed, it is really nice to have a nice neutral hit against most of my opponent's team. So Multi-Attack's going to be really good there. Parting Shot, of course, to pivot, and Protect just to scout out what Scarf hit Dracovish wants to lock into, and I can deal with accordingly. This is my main way to deal with Rose Raid and Aromatisse, as I mentioned. It deals with Musharna pretty well as well, and it is my pivot into Rotom Fan. However, I can't really touch that thing, so I just have to pivot around it. Again, I didn't really prepare for that as much as I would like to, but at least if I can lower its attack and Spatak, then my offensive Mons can sort of take advantage of it. And that is Silvally Steel. It comes every week. It does basically the same thing. Fourth up is going to be Agent Pod. Agent Pod is holding the boots, Adamant Nature, Max Attack, Lost Speed. Moves being First Impression, Leech Life, Liquidation, and Knockoff. I really hope that my Golisopod can bait out the Corsola, and I can knock off that thing's heavy Olite, because if I can, that thing becomes a lot easier to deal with, and hopefully we can do it. First Impression was really good for stuff like the Rose Raid and the Dracovish, namely. I really wanted the priority there. And the Water Spam was pretty nice. Since her team is relatively slow, Golisopod actually does outspeed it's a decent portion of her team, so like stuff like the Poliwhirl I can deal with, Berserker, which is my main way to deal with Berserker, is this thing, Musharna for example, Arcanine though, if he's Wisp Arcanine, I have to switch out in that scenario, which I do expect Arcanine to probably have the Wisp on her. Otherwise, Golisopod is looking pretty good in this matchup. I just gotta be careful of who I stay in on, who I don't stay in on. Fifth up is Rotom Wash and the quote win con of the week. This is holding the Rindo Berry, Max Attack, enough speed to outspeed Hitmonchan, who's being a Nasty Plot, Thunderbolt, Hydro Pump, and Stored Power. This is an interesting tech. I don't need to break through Rose Raid with this set, but if I have to, then like the scenario presents itself, I'm going to. A +2 Nasty Plot, Stored Power doesn't knock out Rose Raid, but with just a little bit of chip, it should. And otherwise, Thunderbolt and Hydro Pump is really spammable against my opponent. Again, I mentioned her team is relatively slow, so the only two things faster than the Rotom are Arcanine and Rose Raid. Arcanine doesn't even like Rotom, and while Rose Raid is the problem, again, I have Rindo Berry Stored Power, so if I get a Nasty Plot up and she's a little bit chipped, then I basically just knock it out, and barring Scarfers, I sort of just win the game there. So I felt like that was really nice to have for Rotom, and just the typing is really nice for defensively, for stuff like Poliwhirl and Berserker. That is Rotom Wash. And then finally we have Espeon. Espeon's holding the Life Orb, Max Attack, Max Speed with the Modest Nature. Moves being Psychic, Dazzling Gleam, Shadow Ball, and Protect. Protect again is to scout out for Dracovish locked into moves. Psychic was just stupid spammable against my opponent. Her only real switch-ins are the Musharna and the Berserker. And Berserker is really frail on the special side. And Musharna doesn't have that great of a matchup, and I felt like the spam on this would be really nice. It's better than Cinderace and Rhyperior in that sense, and I almost brought Vanillix to this match, but Arcanine was just a little bit too annoying, as well as the Corsola. So that's why I decided to lead Vanillix on the bench in the end. And that is going to be the 6 Mons we are bringing. I'm really looking forward to using this Rotom set, and I hope the Appleton puts in a decent amount of work this week. We're going to head over to Pokemon Showdown, and we're going to watch the battle. Alright, we are here on Pokemon Showdown, and my opponent did not bring the Aromatisse, but did bring the Berserker, basically 6 of the 7 I was sort of expecting. In regards to lead, I am going to lead off with Silvally, expecting either the Rotom Fan or the Rose Raid to lead, and either of those I can Parting Shot or Multi-Attack respectively. By the way, it is a little bit glitchy this video, I do apologize. My opponent does lead off with Rotom Fan. I'm just going to Parting Shot out of here into something offensive. However, my opponent is Scarf. And there's a glitch right there. And Arcanine comes out. I do Parting Shot, which is nice. But the fact that this Rotom Fan is Scarf is a really bad thing, because I was planning on dealing with that Rotom Fan fully offensively. But because it's Scarf, it's going to be a bit of a problem. Here I just fire for a Hydro Pump as Rose Raid comes in. It was a pretty safe play. This Rose Raid has some bulk to it, or is AV, but I'm expecting some bulk to it. I'm just going to switch and go back out into Valley Steel as my opponent reveals the Leech Seed. Leech Seeds are actually really annoying for the Steel Valley because I get worn down pretty fast. And now Rose Raid's back to 100. And Rose Raid also has Protect. So this is telling me that this Rose Raid is not Hazard Stack, which is nice, but the fact that it's Leech Seed Protect is wearing down Steel Valley Steel rather fast. I'm just going to parting shot out, continue it as Random Fan comes in, which is good because now I can at least get in an offensive mon on this thing. As I go out into the Espeon, and I can just fire off a Psychic. Her switch instances aren't the greatest as she just hard switches out into the Berserker, as it takes about like 38, almost 40%. This is telling me this Berserker is either somewhat bulky or has the AV, as this thing is probably going to have the AV, as he just goes for Fake Out. And now I can fire off a knockoff as she stays in, and I do knock off the Assault Vest, which is nice because this thing's whittled down. But now Berserker gets a slow U-turn off, and the Rotom Fan comes back in. So you see this thing is getting really annoying. I'm just going to go into Valley Steel. This Rose Raid is not the biggest deal in the world, so I guess sacking Valley isn't the worst thing, as Arcanine does come out. I do want to save this thing as a sack, though, so I'm going to Protect first just to scout out what this thing wants to do, as she just fires off an Extreme Speed, so I know I'm in range of that. I'm going to switch out into the Weezing because that is going to take it quite fine, as she continues to go for the E-Speed, which is really nice. Here I'm going to pull a double back out into Valley, expecting her to want to switch out and not get Toxic Poisoned. As I go on to Valley, however, she does stay in and just clicks Flamethrower, so that was kind of a bad play on my part. I should have maybe done something else, but I had Rotom around still, as Rotom comes out now. And now I'm just going to do Nasty Plot. This is not the greatest idea because I did say to my team builder that a +2 stored power does not knock out Rose Raid. This Rose Raid is actually faster than me, so it does have a decent amount of speed into it. And I'm going to just fire off a stored power, and it only does 91%, like I expected. So now I can't just stay in on this thing. I'm going to have to switch out. I know this thing wasn't going to kill, so I'm not sure why I did this series of plays. As it just goes on the Gliscopod, I know they're going to go for an attack as Sludge Bomb comes out. But this is fine because it gets my Espeon in for free. And at this point, Espeon either gets a kill, basically gets killed because I'm going to click Shadow Ball, and that should do half to Corsola. As the the Berserker comes out and gets sacked off. So it is 5-5 right now, but it's not looking too great because my Gliscopod's low. As now the Rotom Fan comes out. I decide just to take the hit here, as I'm going to Protect first, actually, to scout out what they're going to do. As they go out, they go for Volt Switch. I decide I could go out in the Appleton, but I don't want to give that Rose Raid any free turns, so I take half from Volt Switch. And Rose Raid comes out and is going to be sacked to the Psychic that I throw off. So even though we are up Mons, this Rotom Fan is becoming a really big problem because I don't have great switch-ins. As Rotom Fan comes back out, I'm going to Protect again just to, scout out what they're going to do. As my opponent just goes for the Volt Switch. And at this point, I can bring in Appleton now because the Rose Raid can't take advantage of me fully. So this thing is forced to go for Volt Switch, as it does basically nothing. And now the Arcanine can come out, which at this point, Appleton looks pretty good. It just can't beat the Rotom if it's locked into Air Slash. And speaking of Air Slash, it looks really good against my team. As unfortunately, Arcanine has Toxic, and that is really bad because I do fire off a Leech Seed. I'm going to get a little bit chip on this Arcanine. But because I am on a Toxic Timer, I can't 1v1 things now. I can't 1v1 the Corsola. I can't 1v1 this Arcanine. I can't sort of 1v1 it. But I still need Appleton for so many things. And the fact that I just got Toxic Poisoned really sucked. She goes hard out into Rotom Fan. I drop a Draco, and it only does half. So this thing does have some bulk to it, despite it being Scarf. I'm going to switch out on the Pod, just sack it off at this point. As she just goes for the Volt Switch. I was kind of hoping she'd go for the Air Slash, but she didn't. As now the Gliscopod goes down, and she goes on the Draco Fish. And I'm thinking, there's no way you're going to be Scarf on the Fish and Rotom. So I go on the Espeon, risking it. As she goes down to Arcanine, like, oh, that's great, I get a free Psychic off. So I fire it off, and it does a decent chunk of damage, which is really nice. Unfortunately, because she does have Extreme Speed, she can just go for it and knock me out. If she didn't have the E-Speed, then I could just click Psychic again. But alas, that's not the case. I have to go out into Weezing and just take the hit here since Espeon is still nice as a sack later. So here, it sucks because Arcanine is going to be able to get healed up, but I can throw off a Toxic now. As luckily, Arcanine is going to catch this Toxic, and now this thing's on a timer as well. Again, this all goes back to earlier with Appleton kind of walling the rest of her team outside of Rotom, but because I'm on a Toxic timer, I can't wall everything because I'll get worn down too fast. So that really sucks that I am on this timer here. And here I'm just going to spam Recover because I need to stay healthy for that Draco Fish at this point because I don't know what type of set that is. I'm assuming it's Banded because it's not Scarf. And Banded Draco Fish is very scary against my team at this point in the game. And at this point, I feel like I'm playing a little too passive because I clicked recover for like the 3rd time in a row here. I'm not sure at this point. I'm mentally in the game. I was just like, I need to stay healthy. I need to stay healthy. And I'm giving my opponent a lot of free turns here. I go into Wheezing as she just fires off a Nightshade. It does a decent chunk of damage. And now I'm going to fire off a Toxic, hoping that she stays in with this Corsola. But no, she makes the correct play and goes out into the Arcanine here. And can just soak up this Toxic fine because she's already poisoned. And now I'm expecting my opponent to fire off a Flamethrower. I keep burping my bad. Because it does 47%, and that was a lot more than I thought it would. I do go for Pain Split, so I do get a decent chunk of that back. But the fact that now Weezing's at 58, and I do this Arcanine low, but Arcanine can simply just Morning Sun up on me because I do not have an attack for that thing. And the reason you're probably wondering why I haven't gone out on the Rotom yet is because if Rotom takes any type of damage, I instantly lose to Air Slash from that Rotom fan, so I need to keep Rotom healthy. And at this point in the game, I am realizing that Rotom can still break through my opponent's team. It's just that I need to get a Nasty Plot on a turn when my opponent is switching, and I do not take a hit in the process, which is not that likely, but I see that as an opportunity. If I get a Nasty Plot up, and that Corsola is defensive and not Spadef, I have a chance. So we're kind of looking at that at this point. Appleton, I dropped the Draco here, as now she goes hard into the Rotom fan again, knowing that that was a good play. And here's the point where I'm going to have to sack off the Espeon because I do not have a switch in. Again, I'm expecting her to go for the Air Slash so I can get Rotom in for free, but she goes for Volt Switch again. I'm like, man, she keeps getting these kills with Volt Switch. I really need her to click Air Slash for me. But it's the correct play as she just goes back out into Corsola. And I can't go in the Rotom and break through this thing. So Appleton, I have to come in and just fire off a Leech Seed. And she gets up Rocks, which just helps. This hurts my case even more with the Rotom because I'm at such low health. I'll be down to like 30-something% and I can't take 2 Air Slashes. I drop a Draco just at this point, just to click the button, just in case Rotom wants to come out, but you know, she's preserving that thing in a well-mannered. Now that I'm -2, she can bring out the Rotom fan for basically free. I would need to get a crit to kill it. I'm going to recover up on this Corsola as she just fires off a Strength Sap just to get back up to a decent amount of health. Strength Sap is such a good move. But I do have this Corsola at 72%, which is kind of nice. And now she's going to go out into the Rotom fan as I click the Apple Acid this turn. And it does basically nothing to this Rotom, but I do get a Spadef drop, which is nice. At this point, I gotta stay in. I don't really see a good way to win this game, honestly, as she fires off an Air Slash finally, and I do die to it. I see this as, I don't think, the game is basically over, but if she does choke, I can still win. I do go for the Thunderbolt here just to catch this Rotom as I get flinched. And at this point, the game is definitely over. If I would have killed the Rotom, I don't think it would have mattered. Weezing can't 3v1 her entire team. It can't even beat the Corsola because Pain Split's not reliable recovery. And spoilers, we are going to lose to Ellie for nothing in a not close game because this Rotom fan ran through me. GG to my opponent, Ellie. I tried to allude to you guys in the team builder without spoiling it that Rotom was going to be a problem. So I hope you guys noticed that midway through the battle that it was going to be a problem. My prep didn't align really well with what my opponent brought this week. I could have prepped a little bit better, obviously because I lost. I don't think my battling skills in this game are all that bad. I could have made a few better plays, but it wasn't like the worst. It just came down to what my opponent brought versus what I brought. And that's what happens sometimes. Like Rhyperior looked really good in this game, but hindsight's 2020. I don't know what my opponent's going to bring. She could have brought something completely different to annihilate Rhyperior. You never know that. But she prepped really well. Again, GG to my opponent. Ellie has been a really respectable opponent this week. We are going to move down to a 6-3 record and take a second L in a row, which really sucks. I do apologize to you guys for the kind of poor performance. Despite kind of going through the slump though, I have really enjoyed making content for you guys, and I really hope you have been enjoying it despite the L's we are taking. And speaking of L's, that's probably what we're going to take next week, not because my self-confidence is low at the moment, but because we face Gremlin, and he's 8-1. And he's got a really good team, so that's why I say that. Our matchup's not that great, and he's just a really good battler. So we have our hands full for next week against him. He's probably like the best team in the league, to be honest. That's not a GOAT Crusader. But that is going to be next week's battle. Thank you guys for watching so much. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. If you like Pokemon Draft League content, consider subscribing to the channel. I'm going to head out of here. Have a fantastic day, YouTube.